Plaid. We're here at the Warp office, and Ed is going to talk you through one of the tracks from our new album, Polymer, called Los. And I'm going to say yeah a couple of times.
This track uses a lot of a software instrument called Falcon, which is made by UVI, which I believe is a French software company. We've been using it for quite a few years now.
Well, it transformed from Mac 5, didn't it?
Oh yeah, so it used to be Mark of the Unicorn Mach 5, but then they, I think it was always made by UVI, this French company, but then I think UVI claimed it back. There was some corporate thing, and so now it's reverted back to UVI. And this is it. It basically does more or less everything. So it is quite tricky to get your head around at first. It does regular subtractive synth. It doesn't do additive synthesis. It does sampling and granular sampling, and it also does a kind of type of physical modeling, and you can just modulate everything with everything, which is sort of one of the attractions of it. You can go very deep into it. So for the drums on this track, we're using it in a fairly basic form where I'll just solo the drum bass. We're missing a few samples. This project was actually done on a desktop in a different studio, so it's been transferred onto this MacBook, and in the process we've lost a couple of things and couple of plugins, but nothing. So that's the basic drum pattern, or one of the drum buses. I think there might be more than one, but I think that's the main drum bus. And I think quite a lot of that is coming from Falcon, just as regular samples. So you can see here, it's the key range is like a regular sampler, so it's not really doing anything special. For this, it's acting like just a normal sampler. The other aspect of the drums in this track is Icarus, which is a wavetable synth made by Tone 2, which we've only really discovered recently, and it's really lovely for percussive sounds. So I've just added Icarus into it, and you can see it's this is a resynthesized kick drum. So what we've done is we've loaded the kick drum into Icarus, just any old kick drum sample I think that we had, and it's kind of resynthesized it. So it's analyzed it and created a whole load of partials for the sound, trying to replicate the actual sound of the sample. But once you've got it in basically as a wavetable, you can kind of manipulate it and modulate it in quite a few different ways. Icarus is particularly nice for adding a bit of FM to these wavetables, and it's just got this nice sort of weird, almost acoustic sound, sort of halfway between electronic and acoustic. So you can see that's just sort of backing up, and these are all wavetables that have been resynthesized from samples that we had. So it's just turning your own sounds into wavetables, and it's got obviously wavetable used in a percussive way. It's got a very particular sound, which is quite a wet, sort of almost underwatery type sound. So that's the basis of the drum tracks in here, and then I think there's just a regular 808 type kit, which is this ADMX, which is a great 808 and 909 simulator made by Audio Realism, which I think is a Swedish company. I don't know, doesn't really matter. I'm just sort of really into geography. So yeah, that's great. And we also, in this track, we're also using the ABL for the acid line. We used to have 303s not so long ago, but we sold them. Our one we'd had it modified so that you could kind of have extra inputs and outputs, and it kind of didn't really ever work after the mod that well. So yeah, we ended up selling that a few years ago. So now we're using a software 303, and we did quite a lot of research, if you can call it that, and into finding, you know, who is making the best emulated 303 and what sounds best and how close to the original is it. And we kind of ended up with the ABL3, which is this one, which is really versatile, and to my ears is the most sort of authentic sounding. You get these lovely accents and slides as you would in the real 303. You can program it in the classic way, but that was always a bit of a nightmare. So this is the pattern mode they've created themselves, which is a very easy way of programming a 303. This particular track has got a couple of different patterns in, which are running over in a sort of triplet time. And one thing that the ABL3 doesn't do is store the triplet mode down, so that would be nice if they could fix that. But you can hear it's quite a warm. I mean, they've done an amazing job, I think, on getting the sound right. Somehow they've modelled the original chips, and you would be fairly hard pushed to tell the difference. I mean, I think a real expert probably could, but it's a lovely sounding plugin. So yeah, the main components of this track are really this 303, the drums, which are Icarus and Falcon, and then this sound, which is another Falcon sound, which is a sort of droney, acidy sound. This is Falcon, but being used in a not using the sample aspects of it. This is using these synthesis aspects. So this is just a regular kind of synth sound. It's a sort of analog emulation, and we're just altering the pulse width. This is being sequenced by a script that we wrote ourselves. One of the great things about Falcon is that you can write your own processors and sequencers and modulators for it using a language called Lua, which is a very simple to learn scripting language. It's a sequencing script, but it's a sort of pitch sequencing script, so it's more about pitch and pitch bends and things like that. And so the actual sequencer part itself is fairly basic. This was made quite a long time ago, so I'm not 100% familiar with how it works, because it's, you know, these have not been designed as proper software, so you know, the build is a bit chaotic, and it's a bit it's quite hard to go back and figure out how these things work sometimes, because you build them up as you're going along, literally as you're writing the track, you're writing these scripts. So this is a script. This is the Lewis script that relates to this interface and this sequencer. I won't spend too much time showing you the actual sort of codey part of it, but you can see it looks like a bit of JavaScript if you've ever seen that online. And these are all, at the top is all the sort of, at the top really you're building a user interface, and then as you go down you're starting to build the sequencer aspects of it, the timing parts, and the main thing that this particular sequencer does, which is called pitch toy, it creates random envelopes. Well, you can choose random envelopes. So all of this stuff down here is, you've got this choice of different types of envelopes. I'm not sure if that's clear on this screen, but yeah, so you can see as I scroll up, you can pick from these types of envelopes. And what this script does is, as it's playing, you can either sequence these envelopes, or you can have it pick them randomly. And these envelopes can be assigned to any modulation destination within Falcon. So here it's script 3. This one is actually really just sequencing these notes. So I'll do a quick demo of how that's working.
It's the T bass is the one that's,
with yeah. So yeah, you can see here it's got the note here, and yeah, no, this is actually playing a chord because it's set for harmony mode. I'm just having to remind myself how this works a little bit. So it's playing two. Yeah, it's playing two notes, so yeah, you can see this is really just cycling round over seven chords effectively, and it's doing a pitch bend on this last. On number 6. So on the 6th chord, there's a bend which you can sort of hear. I can probably make that more extreme, and I can also change this note. Yeah, so you can see that's starting to sound wrong. That's just changing the note. So I'll go back to the original note. But yeah, so this is bending. It's quite subtle, the effect. I could start bending some of these other. So what you're hearing is automation, where it's obviously just muted and gone to the wet signal. And I can change the duration of the notes. So you can see it's not getting to the end of the sequence now on one side. This is actually what you're hearing is two instances of this. So if I just solo this, which is just a high version of it. So you can see it's not getting around to the full sequence. Basically, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of options with this. We've built this script to be generic and versatile, so you can see it's basically a step sequencer that has this kind of pitch bending mode and this envelope mode. So yeah, all this top bits is pitch, duration of each note and the octave. This is volume envelopes, this is pan and pan envelopes. And then these things called scripts at the bottom are basically what I was talking about earlier, which is triggered envelopes, which can be sent to any modulation. This says it's going to script 3, but I think on this particular sound that doesn't really do anything. But the volume I can change so you can hear. So now you can hear that's now ramping up instead of ramping down. So yeah, these are effectively just ramps. So that's no ramp at all. That's and you can set, this has got kind of randomizing mode, so you can see it's now randomizing between these different types of envelopes. But this is set for a fairly basic downward ramp or envelope, whatever you want to call it. And this is, the pan can be set for a chord mode where each note in the chord pans slightly differently. So you can kind of do all these things that you may not find in regular sequences, which you've always dreamed of doing. Well, if may not be your live stream, but just having a thing where it plays a chord and it will automatically pan each note in the chord slightly differently is something, you know, that's really useful. And inside these scripts you can kind of do that yourself. And it does look complicated, but it's, even if you're new to coding, it's much simpler than it looks once you get the basic idea of it. Lua was designed, I think, by some Brazilian software engineers, and it's been designed to be easy to learn and easy to implement, and it is. I don't really have a heavy coding background, and this is great and simple to kind of get into, and there's fairly good resources online for learning Lua. So yeah, you build the interface, which is pretty ugly and is pretty limited within Falcon, but you know, you can load your own, a few of your own kind of interface designs. And I guess one of the only issues with Falcon is you're limited to this space. So you can see with this interface we've tried to cram in loads of stuff, which is pretty nightmarish sometimes, but that's one of the limitations. So yeah, that's one of the important sounds in this track is this, what's called an acid line. So it's the 303. This cycles round on a, I'll just reset it to how it should be. This cycles around on a kind of, well, as you hear, on a 7. So one of the features of this track is the sort of polyrhythm. So when you're trying to count things, you've got a few things running on different loops, and that's one of the things that we kind of like about this track. And also when the 303 comes in, that's looping around on a 6. So you've got a 6 and a 7 and a 4 all kind of running together, and it's, you know, relatively sort of coherent. But then when you start concentrating, it's quite hard to sort of find the one sometimes. So one of the other aspects of this track is this kind of wavetable bass that comes in shortly, which is this thing, this kind of which is another Falcon sound, and it's kind of one of the moments in this track where it diverges from everything else, and it starts doing this heavily processed bass sound. And this again is Falcon. This is using a whole stack of stuff. What you're hearing mainly is the wavetable part of it. So it's scanning through the wavetable, and it's also got a stack of analog stuff. And again, this is being sequenced by this pitch toy script. You can see this is running slightly differently, and there's things changing. So what you're getting is these changing durations that seem to be changing randomly. You've also got octave shifts that are changing randomly on each cycle, and you've got these pitches which are consistent, which is sounds like it's effectively one. It's effectively the same note, isn't it? Yeah, sort of. And this is in scale mode. So in the last time you saw the script, it was running in a harmonic mode, which is like a chord mode. This is a monophonic line, and I can show you a bit more what this script, these script modulators do in here. So you can see these are active. You can activate them by pressing that button there. So this is the pulse width of one of the component parts of this sound, this kind of grainy, gritty sound. And you can see that it's something is modulating that sound. And it's in Falcon, it's you have this option of right-clicking and assigning your modulators with this. So here we've assigned a type of modulator called a script event modulator, which is how basically you get a script to talk to become a modulation source. So in here it's a key group. It's a program level script event, which probably means nothing, but you can see there's two options, and that's basically being produced by the script. So that envelope, the envelopes and modulation you're seeing on that pulse width is coming from this script here, which you can see is a random envelope being generated on each kind of event, and then being sent to the pulse width. I believe the filter is this other script here, so I'm going to find that. How are we missing that? There we go, effects, there we go. Sorry, that's normally open. The other great thing about Falcon is the filter modes. It's got it uses the filters from the Matrix 12, which is a classic Oberheim synth, and you've got these amazing collection of filter shapes. So you've got like multiple types of low pass, multiple types of high pass. You've got these band passes and notch filters, but you've also got these all passes, which all passes are really, you can almost create reverb type effects with an all pass, and they're really, what they do is alter the phase more than anything. A regular filter obviously is affecting frequencies and things like that in a different way. Someone else can explain exactly what an all pass does, but it's basically, it will create these phasing reverby effects, and then you've got these composite type filters. So you've got ones up here which are notch filters and high passes and band passes, and as far as I know they're fairly accurate models of the Matrix 12, and it's got oversampling and various other nice things. So we really love the filters in Falcon, do sound really nice, don't they? And this has got a frequency shifter on it as well, which I think is adding that wobbliness. So if I turn the frequency shifter off, you'll hear it. You can hear it's losing a bit of wetness. So the frequency shifter is really just adding that. It's like an octave shift almost. So if I turn all of these filters off, that's the kind of raw sound. and then it's got that's actually a high pass first in the chain, which is, so you've got a kind of bass on the attack phase, and then you lose the bass and you just get a kind of more trebly sound. Then it goes into the frequency shifter, and then it ends up with the low pass, which is obviously doing the classic low pass filtering, and it's just got a tiny bit of resonance that isn't changing. And this sequence is all being triggered by this particular script, which we've kind of done. You can see the durations are changing, so that's how you're getting this forever modulating and forever random set of events. I'll loop it over a bigger range because it's getting a bit tedious. Okay, so that's one part of this sound. The other aspect of this sound design is that it's switching through multiple presets, and you can kind of hear that now. And again, this is another script, so as it's going through this sequence here, you can see we've automated preset changes into it. This isn't a normal function of Falcon. Falcon doesn't really do this. So we made a script that basically groups parameters together, and you can see all the parameters here. So you've got high pass, low pass, and various other aspects. And you can see it as it plays, it's effectively switching presets. What it really is doing is just switching to different settings of all of these parameters. And again, this is another script that we made because there wasn't an easy way of doing this in Falcon. And you can hear what it does is it just creates a dynamic, and means you can kind of change the whole nature of the sound very easily with just one click. So yeah, that's basically the Falcon scripting aspects of this track, which is this preset shifting thing. It's called macro groups because what you do have in Falcon is, on this page, this is the built-in functionality, which is you've kind of got overall controls, which are macro things, which you'd typically assign to a controller. So we would, assign it to these knobs or something like that. But what this script does is it enables you to go between different settings of these macro groups. So if you look you'll see them shifting as it goes through. And at the moment it's doing it instantaneously, but you can set it so that it could do a sort of cross-fadey type thing. So it does it gradually. So now you can see it's sort of, it's fading, it's doing little fades between, so you get gradual moves rather than quick shifts. So it's really, it is quite a useful addition to Falcon, and this script we've actually uploaded to the Falcon user group, so that anyone that wants it on KVR, there's a Falcon group, so it's available up there, and we'll upload the pitch toy one as well. So anyone that wants to get into it can. Yeah, the whole scripting side of it is definitely worth looking at if you've got time to kill. What was really exciting about it is just seeing how you could make these things yourself and starting to learn a little bit about the guts of how software works and how sequencers work, and it's like a sort of junior version of it, because obviously a lot of these, like Logic itself, will be written in a fairly intense language like C++ or Swift, which I think is Apple's own, and this scripting languages are a lot easier to learn than that. There's a lot less maths and there's a lot less understanding of computer science. It's a little bit like English, and that's how it's, you know, it's been designed for people that don't really have coding backgrounds. So I'd recommend it. And I think you can, you know, Logic itself has got a JavaScript engine in, which can process MIDI. And again, it looks daunting at first, but if you just load other people's scripts and you look through them, it will make sense. You know, you've got variables and you've got things that actually are extremely logical. So I think that's sort of Falcon done. We use Falcon a lot. It's got a really good sound to it. It's fairly processor intensive, but it's super versatile, isn't it? Because you've got all these different types of synthesis, and you've got all of these ways of modulating it, and literally every key in a key, you know, each of these key groups can be a completely different sound and have completely different parameter settings. So if you're into this sort of idea of ultra variety and changing things a lot as the track goes through, you know, Falcon's the one for you, really. There are only a few things it doesn't do, which is say additive, which hopefully they'll add at some point, and then it's kind of an all-in-one, which I know some people don't like because it is very intimidating to get to learn it. But a good day spent with this, probably you get the basics. Really, it's like a sampler. It's a bit like the Native Instruments one in terms of structure, where you've got programs, layers, key groups, and then below key groups you've got your oscillators, which can be wavetables, analog, and these various noise sources. That is the other lovely thing about Falcon, is all of these different types of noise. So you can see it's got your regular white noise, but it's got like a crackle and Logic noise and a velvet noise and a Lorenz, which is a type of random noise, and brown, pink, all these types of noise, which obviously in electronic music are really integral to getting texture and sound. So yeah, love Falcon. The other synth we're using a lot on this, which we've only really just got, is going back to Icarus, which is a wavetable synth made by Tone 2, who make a few other synth. You know, back in the day, I think we used Gladiator a bit, and this is one of their more recent synths. I think maybe 2016. So here we're using it for like a percussion, like a bass sound almost. We tend to not use presets unless there's preset is so good that you just have to. We will take presets and modify them, but you know, part of the joy for both of us, I think, with electronic music is making your own sounds and designing your own sounds. So this, I think, what we did was we loaded our sample in, which you do in this import sample section, and you can see there's loads of different ways of importing a sample into it. So you can, and it will basically do its own analysis on it, which can be a granular type analysis, or this resynthesis, which is turning it into a wavetable, which you know, things like Serum and now Ableton has its own inbuilt wavetable. So wavetable has become really popular, really since Serum, I suppose, was the big one where everyone went, actually, you know, wavetable's really versatile, and it is, because you can do regular like Moog type sounds, or you can kind of get into the world of pseudo sample type sounds like this. So once you've resynthesized the sound, which I think this was maybe a kick drum, you can do various things with it, and let's just see what we're doing here. So well, these all kind of speak for themselves. But yeah, this is scanning through the wave, and this has just got an LFO. But yeah, the big way of which is similar to Serum and a few other wavetables is you can pass it through these effectively processes that take the I guess the partials of the wavetable and apply these kind of processes to them. So you can see that's like doing a bit of FM now. Icarus is nice because it's pretty straightforward. It's almost the opposite of Falcon in that most things are on this one page. There's very few controls really. There's not that many modulation sources. There's enough for it to be usable, but you can sort of see everything, and you can hear. This is really just the main. This is the main thing that Icarus can do. Really, is for me anyway, or for us, it's like loading our own samples in, and then putting them through these various processes. So you see there's a big list. You've got FM, you've got various ways of harmonizing it, you've got format filters, you've got ring mods, and wave shaping, and phase distortion, which is a thing that Serum did a lot of, and was one of the sort of things that they really innovated. So yeah, this does relate to Serum a bit. It's a slightly less intensive on the processor, and yeah, it's great fun to play with, partly because of its simplicity. You're not hearing much effect in all of these, but and you can apply. It's the same as Falcon, where it's a right click to apply to apply modulators. So yeah, we in this track we really are just using it as extra drum percussive sounds. So yeah, that's Icarus, which again is a big feature of this track, and a German company, I believe. Sorry. So yeah, now onto sort of mix. We're sort of, I mean, when we first started, we didn't spend enough time maybe on mixing. So a lot of the old Plaid stuff, some of the old Black Dog stuff that we mixed is very light. There's almost no bass because we didn't really know what we were doing, and we've sort of only learned some of the basics relatively recently. What they did have though is a kind of everything was analog, and so they certainly had a warmth, but they didn't have much power, and I think that's partly what people liked about them. But I think on Polymer we've tried to go a bit more bass heavy, try and mix the kick drums up a bit, and just a bit more side chaining, a bit more a few of the kind of dance ways of mixing. As you can see, we're missing a few plugins on here, but most of the important ones are in there. We, as we showed earlier, we tend to just sort of do bus mixing, which is pretty standard, I suppose. So yeah, all of the drums on this are coming through one bus. I think originally this had a isotope alloy on it, on the drum bus, which is a sort of multi, like a channel strip effectively, which has got EQs and compressors and limiters and things like that. But that's not on this particular MacBook. So what we do have is this limiter, which is a really nice mastering limiter that we use. So it's just limiting a bit, and it's got a bit of distortion on the drum bus, the final part of the chain, this is not actually mastering. That's just said a mastering limiter, but it's just a high quality limiter. Our Polymer was actually mastered by John Tahara, who's an old friend, who used, I actually don't know what he used.
Some sort of adaptive equalisation. Yeah, he didn't really tell us.
Yeah, so that's his sort of trade secret. But he did a really brilliant job on it. It's the first time we've had an album mastered by him, but we're really happy with the results. So no, this is just the drum bus, and let me just see if that's it. So we are actually missing a few drum samples as well, but nothing major. So that probably doesn't sound exactly like it does on the track because it's missing this alloy plugin. But we really like this Vertigo VSM, which is a software model of a hardware unit, a high-end hardware distortion unit, which does harmonic distortion. So if I take that off, you can see without it, it's less thick, it's less full-bodied, and also it's pushing, it's doing a little enhancing, like almost like an exciter on the high end. So yeah, this plugin gets a lot of use because it's a quick and easy fix for just adding that sheen and that power to some drums. And like I said, on this album we've tried to just give things a bit more power. We're using a few things by Brainworks, so we're using the reverb on the drums, and we're also using that's it really for drum processing. It's kind of just a bit of reverb, I think, and everything else is kind of built into the sound. So the Icarus things will have kind of pseudo reverbs because they'll have long releases and long delays. So yeah, we do quite a lot of the sound design of drums inside Falcon or inside Icarus. And you can see we're using a few different kick drums and layering them up. It's got this clap, which I think is a sample of a clapping group, and then it's randomly picking different claps to make it sort of sound a bit more natural, like it's actually people clapping along with the track, and make it less repetitive, which is being done in Falcon, where you can set it to randomly pick oscillators or samples. So in terms of mixing, it is quite basic, this track. It's just through all the drums through a bus. All of the Icarus drums are through their own bus as well. And it's some side chaining on the 303 and the bass elements. So the kick's just, ducking the 303 and the bass line. So we're using this. Okay, so yeah, we're using actually on the kick, we're putting a low end, I guess it's just like a synthesizer, isn't it? Because it's one of those low end enhancers, which we tend to do quite a lot. The inbuilt Logic one's pretty good, but this Waves one has got a really deep, chunky sound. So yeah, that's, again, we've just been trying to go low end a bit on this album. So that's on the 303. It's this lovely Native Instruments plugin called Replica XT, which again is something we use a lot. It's sort of just reverb, but it's a really interesting reverb effect where you can do pitch shifting and chorusing, and it's just got a really a lovely gritty sound. So yeah, there's a lot of automation on the acid line on this. You can see loads of different layers of automation. So it's running into a ring modulator, pitch shifters, a kind of this effect called phase mash, which is a great plugin, which is along here somewhere. Which I think it's lost its settings, but phase mash is it's made by the people at Soundhack. It looks really basic.
Geographic location.
I think American company. But you can kind of hear what it does is it's like I guess it's happening in the spectral domain where it's shifting frequency bins and doing weird stuff, but it's a really brilliant overlooked plugin. Soundhack has been around for years, but they've updated them relatively recently, and you can hear it's just a lovely weird, that's just amazing what that's just done to the sound. So yeah, we really love this plugin, and it sounds great on drums and more sort of atonally sounds, and you can do really extreme spectrally type effects. So yeah, this isn't the exact setting that's used in the track, but it's one of the layers of effects that come in on the 303. And other things that we bring in, you also get a bit of fault, which is another brilliant plugin by this company Unfiltered Audio, who I think are making some of the most interesting plugins around at the moment. This particular one is Fault, which is kind of mainly a frequency shifter, but does various other things. And again, modulation is really important on this. Here we are actually using a preset, it looks like, and because the presets are really good. There's factory presets made by various artists sometimes. So you've got Richard Devine and various other people. So yeah, they're highly usable plugins, and you can buy them through Plugin Alliance, I think.
Where are they based?
They're based in California, I think. So yeah, we're using quite a few unfiltered audio. It's quite a few instances of Fault for its sort of frequency shifting, and we're also using, I know that's another one of Fault. So I think a lot of these are for the 303 line, but Unfiltered Audio also make lots of other amazing delay plugins and sort of multi-effects plugins. What else are we using in this track? I mean, that really is the sort of core components. We tend to use another UVI plugin a lot for basic reverb duties, which is SparkVerb, which is a basic algorithmic reverb, sort of old school reverb that just uses very short delays to make reverbs. But again, it's very versatile. We tend not to use much convolution reverbs, and we tend towards these more old-fashioned ones like SparkVerb, Ultraverb we use, and even the inbuilt Logic one. I think it's called Chrome.
Using the Valhalla ones.
Yeah, and Valhalla actually, which are really good. But yeah, this slowly getting to know this Chrome verb, which was introduced a few versions ago. but it sort of takes a while to get to know it. And interesting mix techniques, really not much. I mean, we're using things like stereo spread with a direction mixer occasionally. Obviously there's various issues when you're cutting to vinyl with that, so they always have to squish it down. We use exciters, you can see, so we're quite often using the inbuilt exciters just to get some fierce top end. And again, there's a vertigo. This is on the 303 line. We use this BX control for affecting the stereo width quite a lot. So here we'll either use it to sort of reduce it to mono. Sometimes you want things to be less stereo. Again, that's another plugin alliance plugin, and going back to that, we're using that drum machine, the ADMX, which is audio realism, and we're using the ABL3, and that's the track pretty much.
Thanks for watching. That was Los from our new album Polymer, which is out on Warp Records.